All right, good afternoon to you. We are almost there, almost to the big holiday weekend. Those are the best ones, right? I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Ramisha Shade, and we are dealing with the potential for some tropical activity out there. We are going to be dealing with possibly a tropical storm developing in the Atlantic over the next 7 days. We don't have anything that's threatening the Houston area right now, and if that system develops, it will still be several days out, but of course it is something that we are monitoring. So I just want to give you an update on what's happening out there in the tropics, and I'll let you know what we are expecting, of course, for the big holiday weekend. Here is the disturbance that we are monitoring still in the central Atlantic. National Hurricane Center calling this disturbance number 1. It is getting closer to the Lesser Antilles, but that likely won't happen until early next week. As you can see, we've got scattered showers and storms here, fairly disorganized, but as it gets into the western portion of the Atlantic, we are going to have a slightly better chance that maybe this can get better organized and form into our next tropical system. The next name on the list would be Francine. We're hoping we don't get it, but of course it is always a possibility. Here is the latest projection as far as what the National Hurricane Center is showing for our forecast track and path at this point. So over the next 7 days, it is going to continue to track to the west-northwest around 10 to 15 miles per hour, and it is going to get close to the Lesser Antilles likely by early next week, by Monday and Tuesday, so maybe impacting parts of Guadeloupe and some of those other Caribbean islands. At this point, here is the biggest shift over the last 24 hours. The chance for this developing into a tropical cyclone has doubled. It was 20% yesterday, and now it's up to a medium 40% chance. So that is something that we are monitoring closely. That means we could have potentially a tropical depression, a tropical storm or hurricane developing next week. Like I said, the chance has increased some, so we are going to see if we get Francine by next week, but it's not going to be impacting anyone for the Labor Day weekend. It is still going to be out in the Atlantic, so that is good news. I do want to show you our Saharan dust tracker because really for the month of August, it's been all about that Saharan dust for many parts of the Atlantic basin. We've had a little bit of tropical action this month, but we haven't had a ton, and that is due to the fact that we've had a lot of Saharan dust out there. It's been pretty thick, pretty dense, and that Saharan dust actually rolls off of the western African coast that usually tracks west across the Atlantic, Caribbean, and even makes it into our neck of the woods sometimes right here in Southeast Texas. But it also brings in that dry air and hinders tropical cyclone development usually. You can get a tropical wave to form with Saharan dust around, but you usually don't get a big time hurricane in that type of environment. But forecasts are showing that Saharan dust kind of starting to thin out as we go into the month of September. September also typically the most active, busiest portion of hurricane season. So we are expecting things to kind of get busy, maybe blow up on us. That could happen in a hurry. We've already set the stage for this possible uptick in this tropical action because we've got super warm water temperatures out there in the Gulf of Mexico. Water temps well into the 80s, so steamy water out there acting as fuel for any of these storms that can manage to get going over the next week or so. As we check out the Atlantic and the Caribbean, guess what? It's the same story. Very warm water temperatures popping up out there into the 80s. So we've got plenty of warmth. We also are switching from an El Nino to a La Nina pattern, and that means usually more tropical activity. So we kind of got things lining up. We're getting to the month of September in a few days, and that is typically the most active portion of hurricane season. We've got the warm water temps to help fuel these systems, and yes, we do have that La Nina pattern. We're in the transition zone, but we are expecting to be in a La Nina pattern for the second half of hurricane season. So that means things could get busy in a hurry. Of course, back in July, we were hit by Hurricane Beryl on July 8th, right here in Houston. That eye wall rolling right through the heart of Houston. That made landfall as a Category 1, 80-mile-per-hour hurricane. Of course, we got the dangerous winds and we got moderate damage, but this is actually on the lower end of the scale. We are checking out the Saffir-Simpson scale, which is a scale that measures hurricane intensity or hurricane strength. So that was just a category 1. Imagine if Beryl had been a category 2, 3, 4, or 5. It would have been monstrous, horrific. It was already bad enough, and many Houstonians are still recovering or trying to recover from that damage. So thank goodness it wasn't any worse, but that just shows you the damage that a category 1 hurricane can do. When you move up to a category 2, you're talking about extreme winds and even more extensive damage, more structural damage, more trees getting knocked down, more widespread power outages. So a category 2, certainly a dangerous hurricane as well. We're talking about a major hurricane when we go up to a category 3. That's anywhere from 111 to about 129 miles per hour, still in that extreme winds category with devastating damage likely from that type of hurricane. Let's move on to category 4, and that would be still extreme winds, catastrophic damage, wind gusts 130 miles per hour to 156 miles per hour, and that is a monster of a hurricane. You don't want any parts of a category 4, and you certainly don't want what we consider the worst case scenario, and that would be a category 5 on the Saffir-Simpson scale. That's basically as bad as it gets. When you're talking about a category 5, extreme damage, extreme winds, and basically those wind speeds around 157 plus miles per hour. So certainly we hope we don't ever see that type of hurricane. We hope we don't get any additional tropical action, but there is the chance that we could have more tropical systems brewing, especially since we're entering what typically and historically is the busiest part of our hurricane season. So here's where we are today. We are getting close to September, and of course the peak of hurricane season right around September 10th. So we are less than 2 weeks away from what is typically the peak or the busiest part of hurricane season. That's usually when we have the most tropical storms, hurricanes, and even the potential for major hurricanes developing. So just make sure you're prepared for it all. Best time to prepare is right now when there's a lull in the action. So make sure you've got that hurricane gear ready to go, and just make sure that you know your evacuation routes, you've got your insurance papers lined up and protected in case we were hit by another tropical system. So the good news, nothing heading our way to impact your holiday Labor Day weekend plans from the tropics.